It's fun.
All right, what's up, everyone? Welcome to Behind the Hustle. This is episode 3. I'm Jeremy Drake. Appreciate you guys coming by and listening. I have Mr. Sean, aka Peanut. Only I know where that comes from, but that's okay. We'll go into it and we'll explain it. So yeah, this podcast, we interview creators, small business owners, and entrepreneurs. So that's why I'm having Sean on here right now, because he's the creator of the podcast Casually Speaking. It's some good stuff. If you want to take a listen, I'm just going to have a moment where you guys can hear some of my favorite parts.
I really want a Spider-Man movie where he actually has to deal with some heavy issues.
People see those pictures of like Nate Diaz with blood all over his face and everything like that, and they think, oh my God, it's so horrible. But really, it's all superficial.
Yeah, without further ado, Sean, go ahead and introduce yourself. Let everyone know what you're up to.
Hey, this is Sean Ryan from Casually Speaking. Yeah, I haven't been called Peanut in years, so that was definitely a blast from the past. But I practice jiu-jitsu, and I have a podcast about that. But we just talk about pretty much anything I want to talk about. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
That's cool. Yeah, so just kind of like me getting into it and stuff and like listening to it, like you kind of touched on it just right there. Did you primarily create it for jiu-jitsu, or what was it going into it?
You know what's funny is like I actually didn't want it to be a jiu-jitsu podcast because there's a million out there. But it's all I do now, so it's kind of always on my mind. So literally after this podcast, I'm going to the gym to do that. So it's literally all I do all day. I have to do that.
Yeah, it's just one of those. It's one of those things. It really is a commitment. It seems like, a lot of the people that I know that are into it, they definitely. I mean, from an outsider in looking, it's like it's very much like a Kool-Aid type of deal. You know what I'm saying? Like, and the people that just sip it ever so slightly, they end up chugging it like a week later, you know what I mean? Which is cool. And I know that's why, for me at least, I've always like, kind of in a weird way, I've done this with two things that I've noticed. World of Warcraft, right? Mm-hmm. Because I knew that I just avoided that game because I knew it would consume me. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then I feel like I do the same thing with jiu-jitsu because I know if I taste it a little bit enough that it will consume me.
Oh, dude, you're going to get hooked.
You know what I'm saying? So, like, it's just one of those things where I'm like, I know there's a time and place when I'm ready, it'll happen. So that's always been my thing on the inside, which is funny. And I have a lot of people that I'm around because of my job and stuff. Like, there's one guy, his name's Ismail Gomez, and he trains over at Gracie Temecula, I think.
Okay.
But he's our he was for like the longest time our defensive tactics instructor. Dude, he just got his black belt like not too long ago and stuff. So he's pretty legit. And it's funny, I had to going through this course, we had to do this thing where there was this obstacle course, and we were like gassed. We had to go through all these different things, and I was the very first person to go, and I had to fight him.
Oh.
And he was fresh.
Yeah.
And I have no experience. So it was just funny. It was just one of these things, and it's just like, I don't know, it's just crazy. Off in a tangent as far as that, but so you created it with the intentions of not really going hardcore jiu-jitsu, and then it kind of just developed that because that's what your life is essentially.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, most of my like planned interviews that I want to do on the podcast are actually people, my teammates and stuff. Because I thought it'd be kind of cool too, because just personally, when I first started jiu-jitsu, I didn't know anybody when I went into the gym, and I go to this place called 10th Planet, which a lot of like UFC fighters go to. So like you can imagine like straight up UFC fighters coming to this gym, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing here. So yeah, exactly. Like just don't hurt me that much. And it was intimidating. And honestly, the best group of guys that I've ever like met are from those gyms. And I'm like, why don't I just make interviews with that so that people can kind of curb that fear from actually joining in and stuff. So that's kind of
that would actually be a good insight for sure. And people think that's valuable just because I think that's what it just takes less of the it takes more of the bite away, like you said, you know what I mean, as far as the intimidation factor. And that's with the, like, a lot of things, you know, like people get very intimidated with like the gym and all that side looking out, like, you know, on the outside looking in, you know, because the you know, common misconceptions or whatever. And I remember just listening to, I think you touched on it in some of your one of your podcasts, as far as just talking about like the people's perception of what these guys would probably be like, and how that it couldn't be more wrong. You know what I mean? As far as that kind of stuff is concerned, you know.
Yeah.
Granted, I'm sure there's still some of them in there that are like that, but those are usually the exceptions. You know, everyone, I think, in anything is like that. You know what I mean? There's always a few people that kind of repel, you know, people from whatever they're into, kind of, in a way. But that's not the majority, I would say. You know.
Yeah, I'd say so. Like most of the meatheads, they get weeded out real quick. We do get them all the time, but it's funny. It's like you would think the black belts like the meathead, but it's really the intro guys. Those guys are the guys that try to muscle everything through.
Yeah. And I would that makes sense, just because I feel like a lot of them probably go in there. I mean, maybe not, but maybe that's just me like thinking in. But they go in with well, maybe this is another place I can test my strength kind of thing or whatever, and then it ends up not being that kind of situation, you know.
Exactly.
There's a few dudes that I follow. Actually, I want to pull them up just to show you. Like, they're pretty crazy. There's a dude, his name is, he's actually a doctor, but he's like 260 pounds. Dude's huge, and he's like ripped too, but he rolls.
Oh, nice.
And he takes it serious, you know what I mean? Like, he really goes through it, and he doesn't use it as like an ego thing, you know, and all that kind of stuff. So it's interesting seeing, so you can see it's the little dude. Well, he's pretty big. I don't know if you can see if it glares, but he's just a chunky dude, you know. He's like, and it's funny, they talk about, like, you know, rolling with a guy that it's different with rolling like with a dude that's like 250, 260 like that, and then also knows what he's doing.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's a humbling thing, because I remember one of my buddies took me, and then I remember getting like whooped by like a 15-year-old, you know. It's just a crazy experience, but it's cool. As far as the other things you touch on your podcast too, you talk about like personal interests outside of jiu-jitsu too, right?
Yeah, I'm really into comics because I'm a big nerd. I mean, I've always been like that ever since our Best Buy days, you know. But
I think all of us were, though. That was just like by default. That was like the interview. They're like, "Hey, are you a nerd?" And you're like, "Yeah," and they're like, "You're hired."
All right, you're done.
yeah, exactly. But you're hired and you're going to media.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, that's what it was.
I mean, I talk about comics and movies whenever the news kind of comes towards me. You know, I'm always like a day late anyways, so it's like, if you listen, you're gonna hear it again, I guess. But I do that, and then also I just try to have really cool interviews, like with you, and then also my buddy who's a ghost hunter. That podcast freaked me the heck out. So I'm totally not into that, but yeah.
It's like perspectives though and stuff. Yeah, I listened to the one where you reviewed like the Spider-Man movie or whatever, the one that you just recently watched and stuff. So yeah, I saw that you're going into the comic stuff and all that, which is cool because I like that stuff as well. And then also too, you're just like talking about like cool like life stories too. You know, I like the bank one.
Oh yeah.
I was like, dang. Yeah, but those are like all things we can relate to in some sort of way where that kind of stuff happens, you know.
Exactly. Like a lot of it too. I mean, I do this podcast mainly in my morning commute on to work. So like my mind just wanders sometimes, and I just go after it. Just drinking my coffee and
the cold brew.
Coming to my mind. Yep, my cold brew. Exactly.
Yeah, you gotta have the cold brew. I can already see like as like time goes on, like the little like things that become a staple. You know what I'm saying? Like. And you kind of see that from the outside when you like follow somebody and you're like, oh, I've been here since day one. And those little tiny things that they mention in the beginning without even being aware of it end up being a thing like that's a staple later on, which is kind of funny. But yeah, that's definitely how it goes, you know. as far as like you doing the podcast and stuff, did you have any specific like inspirations or like people that kind of like, or just someone else that they kind of put a light under you to get it started or something like that?
Honestly, like this is gonna sound so cliche because I think a lot of podcasters draw inspiration from this dude, but like really, it's true. And it's Joe Rogan. Because I like how his format is. It's not really. He interviews everybody. Like it doesn't matter who it is, as long as you're interesting, he's gonna interview you. You know.
Yeah.
So that was my biggest inspiration. And I just thought it'd be fun, just like actually get to talk to interesting people.
Yeah.
And maybe get paid for it somewhere down the road. So
Right.
that's what it really was. So yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. I like his podcast too. The Edward Snowden one was extremely fascinating.
Yeah.
Like, just because like like it's just interesting from my perspective because like I'm in the military and then like there's like all that stuff and then I'm like I know what you mean, and like just kind of hearing all these things and it was just super interesting, man. Super interesting stuff,
Yeah.
But yeah, it's insane as far as like the whole podcast stuff, and then like you have him, and how it's just such a large platform, and it's just his quality is obviously really good, but it's not like overly high produced. You know what I mean? It's just kind of like you have your staples, okay, cool, good audio, you got some video, whatever, boom, and then we're gonna get rolling in, and it's just about the conversation and the dialogue and the people and all that kind of stuff. So that's really cool, and hopefully that's a sign of what the future will be like too.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, I mean, honestly, my biggest detractor from doing a podcast was really just figuring out how to even do it. Like, even setting this up, like I was like, dude, nothing's working, and then I finally got work, so yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. And that is a piece that is hard, you know what I mean? And I like the fact that Anchor is a thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like hats off, like, and it sounds like crazy because it's not like this is like sponsorship or whatever, but like, dude, they simplify the process like so much. It's insane. It's like they're like the Uber of the podcasting situation. You know what I mean? So yeah, hats off to them for that. Hopefully more people kind of take that as a way to get in, you know what I mean?
Exactly. And I actually heard they just got bought out by Spotify, so like it's only gonna get better,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Honestly, that app was what got me into it. Like I downloaded it and I was like, whoa, this is really easy. And then I bought a mic that I can plug straight into my phone. And I literally do my podcast on my phone. I'm doing it right now.
Yeah, that's legit. Yeah, and that's like I did it a little bit before because like setting up a podcast and stuff where you have to go through like each individual distribution thing, like and then find a host and do all this other stuff. I was like, no. And then now like it's just like boom, and then they just essentially do the back end work for you, which is really cool. So hopefully more people get into it and stuff and they're not too intimidated by it,
Exactly. I mean, honestly, I think the more content people create, the better. The more people get their thoughts and ideas out into the world, I think the better. I mean, it's really weird because I feel like this world's gotten more connected, but also disjointed all at the same time, So I just think like, yeah, the more we create, the more we, put our thoughts out there, it's going to be better for everybody,
Yeah, I think it's a matter of being, I guess maybe putting the wedges in between those things that you were saying, because I think the things that are polarizing have the ability to have the spotlight, you know what I mean? And then those are the things that end up just getting the spotlight because they are polarizing, where say maybe me and you, like, I don't know, like I've never been the person to not necessarily run out and then be like, hey, this is what I want to talk about, or this is what I think, or whatever, you know what I'm saying? But in a sense, like in a weird way, there's almost some sort of, and I don't know, maybe this is just myself, because it's almost like an obligation, you know what I mean? In a way now that I feel, because it's like, yes, there are issues, right? But I think it's kind of, you touched on it in the Facebook thing, like, you know what I mean? The things that people bring up are just polarizing. So then it makes it seem like this is the status quo and this is how it is all the time. Because me and you, the dudes that are like, we're just chilling in the back because we don't really necessarily want to, like, you know what I mean, get involved in it or whatever, and then be like, well, okay, you have this point, but what about all these other positive things that, or this other way of looking at it, or whatever the case, you know what I mean? And that's definitely a thing. And then I feel like that in a way too, just because I've been in law enforcement for some time now, and man, that world can entirely consume you.
Yeah.
You know, if I were to use that as my basis of how society is, I would have a very skewed perspective. You know what I mean? Because the concentration of my interactions and the customers, or whatever you want to call it, is different than the majority. You know what I mean? That's not a good reflection of what society as a whole is. You know what I mean? But I feel like it's easier to kind of maybe say that because it's easy to blame and then all that kind of stuff. Where I feel like me and you and these conversations, I feel like hopefully is more the normal. You know what I'm saying? More in between there of what is normal in that sense.
Exactly. I mean, I think, like, it's like with Facebook and everything, you only get like this little bit, you know what I mean? Like, where you have to just, you read whatever they post and everything, and you can try and have a conversation, but like really people just get so emotionally like charged that most people don't even read past the first sentence because that first sentence really ticked them off or whatever, you know? And these kind of conversations, like, these long form, hey, let's hash it out, let's find a middle ground, I think honestly is way better. I mean, hats off to you that you're a police officer, you know what I mean? And you serve this country too. It's like you do both of them, you know, and you have a unique perspective on that, you know? Were you a police officer with the whole, like, when that controversy was all happening and everything like that, like with the shootings and all that, or did you?
Well, I've been in now for 8 years, so I mean, depending on which one, because to me they all blend together. You know what I mean? As far as like any sort of controversies or whatever.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
just like,
I was like, I just got caught. I don't know which one it is, but
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But like as far as like so I've been in for a while, but yeah, I just have I've always just tried to, I think what it is, and this is like to relate it to the UFC thing, or in a way, is Ronda Rousey, right? Like when she was a champion for so long, and then she lost the championship, you know, and then it kind of like she got really depressed on it, and then it seemed like she lost her identity because she identified so much with, you know, her being the champion, and then once she wasn't that anymore, she was kind of confused of who she actually is as a person. You know what I mean? And then that's what it's weird because that made me think like, oh yeah, make sure I stay grounded, the fact that I'm Jeremy, and that whatever it is that I do, whether it's being a cop or whatever, if I quit or being in the military, those things don't necessarily matter. They're not me. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's always, I've always tried to have that perspective because I don't want to get like sucked into those worlds of, you know, of that, because I feel like it's dangerous.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely. I think that's a good that's a good mentality to have. I mean, I kind of touched on that too on one of my podcasts where I'm like, you're not your job. You know, you're you. I'm not just a jiu-jitsu guy, even though I talk about it like constantly. I'm not just a blue belt jiu-jitsu dude. I'm also Sean, you know?
Yeah.
I think that's a healthy thing to have. And I think it's really easy to kind of fall in those pitfalls where it's like, well, I am a cop and that's all I am. You know, it's like, no, like you're a cop most of the day. Absolutely. But you do clock out, you know, so, or whatever you do, punch out. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. It is intense, man. And I think what it is maybe there's a difference between what I've, I don't know, what I've noticed is maybe you get some people, because I'm sure for me, at least, like speaking on how I got in there, I feel like, and I've come to fruition with this, like as of lately, is the fact that like I kind of ended up going into these things as more of a path of like survival kind of thing, you know, because I was, you know, like I was doing okay at Best Buy. Like it wasn't like I could have stayed there, you know what I mean? But there was just, I was chasing different things at that time, and I was kind of focused on the monetary and, you know, all those kinds of things because I saw the opportunity of being able to be paid more and all this other stuff. And then getting there, you know, and then chasing all those things, and then realizing like, oh well, maybe it's not. These were things that I was focused on because of X goal, which was like the monetary thing. And then once I get there, I'm like, well, maybe it's not as cracked up as it should be, you know, or maybe I chase these things for not out of what I want as a person, but because of the survival things and all that kind of stuff, you know? So that's interesting. And it's kind of bizarre for me just because this path has been a while. Like ever since I started Best Buy, dude, I had the intentions of doing it. And then now being like 30 and then coming to some sort of realization that I'm like, well, I'm gonna quit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I'm gonna quit and do something else. Like it's very bizarre to me, you know?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like for everybody that's listening, like that's how we met was through Best Buy. And I always look back on Best Buy and I'm like, man, that was the coolest job, but it was also like some of the people that I know that are still in Best Buy, I'm like, I kind of feel a little bit bad about because I'm like, oh man, they didn't grow, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I mean, it was the chillest job. I mean, I could walk into work one day and be like, I don't feel like working today, and I wouldn't. Like for 8 hours, I just like, cool, whatever.
Yeah.
But like, and then like everybody there was super cool. Like all you guys were so awesome, you know. And it's just like, I mean, yeah, my nickname was Peanut because like all we
I have no clue why. I'm like, I just like I start there and they're like, this guy's Peanut, and I'm like, accept it, I got it.
They got it. Yeah. Honestly, it started out as a joke that like it was the first word that came to my head and it just stuck, and I was like, oh, I guess I'm called Peanut now.
Yeah, fair enough.
But yeah, like, I mean, it was a great experience. Like I always look back on the Best Buy days with those rose tinged glasses because I'm just like, man, that's awesome. But like, I'm glad that I left because I wasn't doing it all, you know. So
true. Yeah, and that is something for me as well. I'm glad we circled around to the Best Buy days because that was just it was a fun experience, to be honest. There was a lot of like, for me, it was my first job too, so there was like a lot of like live lessons of what to do, what not to do, all that kind of stuff. You know, going to morning meetings and then having like my supervisor like hungover, and I'm like, because like from my perspective, I'm like, yo, like I'm here, you know what I mean? I'm here, and then you're just like passed out on this couch. And I'm like, but I'm here on a Sunday or a Saturday, and I don't want to be here, but I'm like, at least teach me something, sir. Like, you know what I mean? Like different things of like, okay, well, this is what I don't want to do as a supervisor when I get older or whatever the case. And then having opportunities to go and do different things and just meet different manager styles and you know what I mean, all that kind of stuff. Oh, and the communication piece for me was huge. You know what I mean? Like just being able to learn to talk to people was huge, and I think that's helped me even just so much in just being in law enforcement too, because that's what I lean on is just my ability to communicate, because I much rather try to convince someone to put handcuffs on than anything else, you know what I mean, so to speak. It's not as literal as that, but I mean that's what I would like to do, you know what I mean, just like dealing with people and customers and stuff like that. And it's just funny.
Dude, you must be a black belt in communication if you can convince someone to go in handcuffs.
Pretty much, like literally that's what my thing is. Like my whole thing is the only times I ever get into altercations is with people that are like intoxicated or in stuff, because there's no reasoning typically, you know what I mean? Yeah. But other than that, like if it and then I feel like it has something to do with where I grew up, because it's just a matter of me being able to talk to you and all that kind of stuff. And then just respecting people, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And usually people are really cool with that, you know? What was that?
My fiance just got home, so hold on.
Oh, okay. You're like, what's up?
Yep. Oh, and my phone's falling. There we go. Hold on.
It's all good.
All right. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, it's all good. But yeah, so that part, that is interesting as far as like the communication piece. It's funny too, Best Buy, you were like, for me, looking back, you actually were an influence on the music that I listened to.
Oh, nice.
You know, which is interesting because I remember just conversations of like, you know what I mean, like because I came from Lake Elsinore, in like Section 8. All I knew that existed before I came to Marietta was like rap and hip hop. You know, that was the only thing that anyone ever listened to for the most part, and that was my culture and all that kind of stuff. And then coming to Marietta, then I learned about all these like angry screaming bands, You know what I mean? And that was really how it was, because it was funny. It was, even though it was like a 20-minute drive, the culture and the music and stuff was different.
Yeah.
You know?
Definitely.
And then, yeah, like you, just a lot of those different types of bands. Like I remember having conversations about like Seosin and like a whole bunch of different other bands and stuff. And then remembering that you were in a band, and then, you know, all that kind of stuff. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah,
Those
absolutely.
times.
It's funny because like I forget about that. Like I'm like, man, I forget I was even in a band and everything. And literally, like that was my goal, was to get signed and everything. And then like it almost happened. And
Yeah.
then I just kind of gave up on it. I was like,
Yeah.
not a good business.
Yeah, man, it is an interesting place, that's for sure. Especially these days, you know, as far as like the difference between like what's maybe popular, you know, versus what the artist wants and all that kind of stuff. You know, it's definitely difficult and stuff. So as far as the things that you're doing with the Casually Speaking, what would you say, what are some of your like highest ambitions with it, as far as like where you would maybe want to go, like at your highest, you know, I'm talking to like the Disneyland level of what it is. And then maybe what are some of the forefront steps that you have to take in order to maybe get there?
I mean, honestly, like the biggest thing is, I mean, the overall end goal is someday, somehow, like being able to quit my job and just do this full time and talk to interesting people throughout the week. That's honestly like the big goal, but who knows if that's gonna happen. But other than that, like the more attainable goals is actually like just interviewing just really interesting people.
Yeah.
I'd love to get onto, and I feel like there's a way to do it too, is I feel like I could get to Joe Rogan. I could.
Yeah. I would.
Planet. I train a 10th planet. This is something I could do this.
It's doable for sure.
Yeah.
It's doable.
But yeah, I mean, honestly, that's really all it is. It's right now, it's just more of a passion project than anything. I'm not really looking to get any kind of monetary gain. Yeah, I am sponsored and stuff like that, but it's pennies. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right. But that's my goal, is just to be able to make a brand out of this, and even maybe have podcasts under me where other creators are you know, brave enough to start creating themselves and everything. So I think that's like the big goal.
Yeah, that would be sweet. That'd be sick, especially if you just were able to do it, you know, as your daily kind of thing, you know. That'd be awesome. And it kind of gives you, or it kind of speaks for what the times are right now, you know, because it's pretty intense that's how it is. And I feel like going forward, like individuals, like the idea of an individual just being able to have some sort of like whatever you want to call it, a brand or some mission around them, and then them being able to, you know, distribute that like through the different platforms, whether it's through podcasting or YouTube or, you know, your favorite TikTok.
Oh God.
Yeah, the different platforms, and being able to like communicate through that, and then that potentially be their job. You know what I mean? Like it's crazy, and I feel like that's gonna be more of what is gonna happen in the future. You know, just individuals being able to connect and have their own business just associated with their personality, so to speak. You know, which is pretty crazy, just because then you get to the whole, and there's a lot of conversation on this, and you may have heard some of the ones with Joe Rogan on it and stuff about how, you know, as automation and AI comes in too, there's going to be a whole lot of jobs that are going to be irrelevant.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because like truck driving and all these like the clerical jobs and all these things, they're not going to be, it's apparently like 3 to 4 times like bigger than the displacement that the Industrial Revolution did or whatever. So there's going to be all these people that just essentially don't have a job. You know what I mean? And then, but I feel like it speaks for maybe what we as society will do, and we'll have like our own little like you know, digital renaissance period, you know what I mean, where we're like doing these kinds of things, where we're like coming in and figuring out how to create and how to distribute like this message, you know, that we all have and stuff, which is pretty cool. I mean, like my mom, she freaking does, like, she doesn't do like YouTube and all that kind of stuff, but she does resell stuff, you know, where she uses like, you know, Poshmark, Macari, eBay, and, you know, all these different things to go out and then make money, make a living. And then someone like herself could, you know, turn the camera on herself, you know, all that kind of stuff, to start communicating that message, and then you know, leverage that experience and all that kind of stuff. Same thing with you, as far as if you were able to do that also with your jiu-jitsu stuff too, if you ever, you know, made content based around your jiu-jitsu stuff as well. Like, that's another thing. Twitch, dude, I know there's dudes that freaking they broadcast like their little their sessions, you know, their little roll sessions and stuff like that, you know. It's just all crazy. It's all like possibility out there, you know.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, honestly, I think like, yes, with AI and everything like that, like jobs are gonna close, but like the people with creative minds, they're gonna figure out a way how to work around that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's the big thing, is like, we got to encourage people to be creative. You know what I mean? Like, it's so, I mean, I work at a call center, like I work in a cubicle, straight up corporate life. It's really easy to just turn into a drone where you're like, you don't really think about anything. And it's like, yeah, but it's comfortable, but make yourself uncomfortable and do these things that like are creative and things. And it's like, it is nerve wracking, you know, you're putting yourself out there, but it's like, well, you're going to adapt from it. You know what I mean? You're going to make yourself grow from it. So
yeah, you will. And yeah, that is good. And I love that advice. It's just about a matter of being uncomfortable, you know.
Yeah,
it is like, it really is so simple, but it's like really, really, really true, you know. It's whatever ends up being like this thing that you just kind of push through and get over that feeling of being uncomfortable, it ends up helping you, that person out later eventually, you know, whether they feel like that it is at the moment or not, you know.
exactly.
Going, like, when you started, what were some of the things that you felt were like, what prevented you from starting?
Honestly, the biggest thing was really the technology. I just couldn't figure out how to get it done with my schedule. That was the thing, is like, I did have a podcast set up before, and I did try to make a podcast, but like you said, like, there wasn't Anchor, it wasn't anything like that. I had to like set up my own account in different places and like upload it. And it was just like, I don't have time for this. Like, I just don't, you know. And when I found out about Anchor, I literally did a test podcast that I immediately deleted, so you guys can't hear it. But like, I was like, oh, whoa, I feel like this could work, you know.
Girl, who is this? This sounds pretty dope.
I literally, and like the test podcast was just me rambling and being like, yeah, so this is me testing it and seeing if this actually works, and goodbye, you know. And I published it and everything, and I was like, oh, whoa, like, it went everywhere, you know. So then the biggest thing was, okay, when do I have time to do this? Because literally I go to work, and then I come home, take a 30-minute nap because I'm exhausted, and then I go train. And then I get home at around like 10 o'clock at night, and I'm like, well, got to do it again, you know? So I was thinking, well, maybe the weekends, but the weekends, like, that's all my personal stuff, you know what I mean? So I was like, okay. And then I was thinking about it in my car, and I was like, man, I have like 30 extra minutes until I got to get into work. And like, that's like this every day. I'm like, wow, this is it. This is the window. Here we go. You know?
Yeah. Okay, cool.
That's when the light bulb kind of clicked, and I was like, okay, all right. So I do interviews on the weekends still, but I just have like little slots and everything like that. But most of it's just me in my car, like talking.
Right.
And ours are really good with sound, let me tell you.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah, the acoustics and stuff. And you're like, this is legit.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that's pretty much it. It wasn't really a hesitation or anything like that. I mean, as you know, I've been in bands and everything like that. So me putting myself out,
that's true. Yeah, you are a performer. You know? So that is something that's good. That's a benefit. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Like, I'm not scared to put myself out there or anything like that. I will say there's a word of caution out there. If you ask for advice on Reddit, be sure to get just roasted. Like, Reddit's the worst.
Yeah, that's funny.
Dude, you're like, don't say that. They listen.
Yeah, exactly. That's great though.
Like, I honestly, the most advice that I got was listening to other people doing podcasts. I think that's the best advice. So yeah,
that is good. Yeah, so I mean that makes sense. It's the friction of just being, not the technical know-how and all that kind of stuff, and time is it's a huge one. You know what I mean? Because like that's definitely something that I've had to deal with too. And then work time and all that kind of stuff has been rough. There've been a lot of overtime and all that, and then yeah, so time's huge, and I feel like a lot of people can really relate to that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like you said, it's just maybe having that that understanding, like, okay, this is something I want to do, and just keeping your eyes peeled of like when that window comes in and where you can, have that 30 minutes to do it, or maybe being able to realize like, okay, well, maybe I should just watch 30 minutes less of Netflix or something like that, and then that's the window, or whatever the case.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you just have to be adaptable. Like, really, for you and I, trying to schedule like us getting together and everything. At first, it turned into let's go to, because we're both in California. It's
Yeah.
places, and it's like, no, that's not gonna work out.
Right.
And it's adapted to this, and it's like, okay, like this works
Right.
just good.
Yeah, you got to be able to roll with it. You got to be able to roll with it for sure. We still definitely need to meet up and all that kind of stuff for sure. I would like that. Maybe even just like maybe the jiu-jitsu, man. Maybe you can help me. Maybe that would be a good thing because you're there all the time. So that'd be a good place to meet up, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, well, there's a jiu-jitsu place. There's a 10th Planet in Marietta that just opened up. Yeah. So, and I know the buddy that I have a couple of buddies out there that I train there. So I'll just tell them, hey, we're coming down. So.
Okay, cool. That'd be good.
Yeah.
That'd be sick.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So as far as your jiu-jitsu stuff, do you have any because you did do a fight recently? You did a weigh-in thing and all that. You were doing like a cut and all that kind of stuff. So that's already over with, right?
Yeah. So now, I mean, there is a competition that's happening on the 17th, I think. I'm not doing it. Everyone's asking me if I am, but I'm not going to. Partly because of money. Competitions are expensive. But that's actually why you see a whole bunch of practitioners like sponsored and everything like that, because the sponsors pay for those tournaments.
Okay.
They can range from like 100 to, $50 to a couple $100.
Wait, so you said the sponsors pay for the tournaments?
Yeah. So I mean, that's typically what they do is they'll sponsor you so that you wear their like rash guard or whatever. During the tournament, so you're pretty much advertising their product. I'm not that good, so I'm not going to be sponsored. So, but yeah, like I did a tournament called the Baddest Blue, and then the next weekend, my coach calls me up and's like, "Hey, you have to go to headquarters and you have to be in this tournament that's going to be broadcasted on YouTube. So good luck." And I'm like,
dang.
Yeah,
that's random.
Yeah. So I mean, it's out there and everything. I look really cool because it's like with professional cameras and everything like that.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I mean, I lost. I look really cool while losing, but
yeah, that's cool. You got style points for that. That's legit.
Exactly. So, I mean, competitions, I'm always half in, half out anyways, because I'm getting older and these kids are only getting younger. So, and there's definitely a thing with that, because like I'll be in a match with the dude that's 10 years younger than me, and you can feel every year that you're.
I'm sure. Yeah, it makes a difference.
Yeah. So, I have to be really. I call it lazy jujitsu. That's what I do. Is don't use my energy until I absolutely have to, which can make me be in really dangerous positions. That makes my coach freak out, and then I get out of it. He's like, "Okay." Oh God,
that's funny.
Yeah.
That makes sense though, as far as like just kind of knowing what it is in yourself that you, because like some people want to compete and some people don't, you know what I mean, like, but you're still there in it and you're still getting the value out of it that you want,
Yeah.
So that's cool. Sweet. So pretty much we'll wind it down here in a second. I just have a question for you, kind of twofold, as far as anyone, we kind of touched on it, but just to like reiterate, if anyone is a creator or all that kind of stuff, or wants to be, just some advice from you that you would want to give them. And then on a different note, as far as like, what do you think small businesses and stuff, like what do you think they can do in terms with this new era, right? You know what I mean? That is good, you know, for them as far as like the social media stuff and all that. And I'll give you, for me, I like stuff for small businesses that are that I know everyone says it. It's like the authenticity, you know. I just hate. I really don't like the cheesy, overdone, like the stuff where it's like trying too hard, you know, kind of thing. And whatever small businesses can do to kind of go back to older times, you know what I mean, to just establish that is what I, as a consumer, like, and all that kind of stuff. I'd be curious what you think, just because you I mean, worked at Best Buy, your corporate world now, like we understand a lot of that stuff from two sides, right? Like the business side, and then what we like in terms of being a consumer, down to earth stuff. But yeah, if you could share that, that'd be cool.
I mean, I think honestly, the biggest advice I can give somebody that's starting out, making content and everything like that, is just make content, make it as constant as possible. Honestly, the more the better. And the reason being is like, you're not going to be good the very first part of it. You're just not, because you're starting something new. And just keep making more and more content. You're gonna find your own voice. Like really, it's gonna evolve into something where it's uniquely yours. As long as you're not, and this is kind of going with the small business part too. Like, if you have a lofty goal of like, I'm gonna be the next Joe Rogan, awesome. But like, don't make that be your focus. Make it like, fall in love with that grind. And fall in love with actually the engagement of your audience and everything like that. I think that's like my biggest advice, because people are gonna actually latch onto someone that's genuine, you know. And I think with small businesses too, because I did run a martial arts gym. It wasn't jujitsu, it was karate based, but I did run that. It didn't do too well. I don't run it anymore, obviously, so it obviously didn't do so good. But honestly, I think, like, again, just being as genuine as possible, and not focusing on the money. Like, really, that's a means to the end. You know what I mean? Like,
without a doubt.
You just can't focus on it. And I think with small businesses and everything like that, like, be genuine with your consumer base. Be actually genuinely concerned about what they're purchasing from you. Make it the general article. You know what I mean? Whatever it is. I mean, I'm thinking about making soaps, you know, and it's like, well, I want it to be the cleanest soaps ever, you know. It's like, you just want to be engaged with it, and use social media, use Instagram, use Facebook, not to peddle your stuff, but to actually engage with the customer base, you know.
For sure.
Have meaningful conversations with them. I think that's what we're all craving, and no one's giving it. You know what I mean? Most of the products that I buy that are from small businesses are people that I actually end up knowing. Like, I end up knowing the CEO of the business, because they're engaging with me, you know? And I think that's going to be the biggest thing. I think that's going to be the gold mine that no one's really tapped into yet.
Yeah. And that's what, for me, I like about the YouTube stuff and people that are doing this, because I can see you, and if I support you or choose to support you and all that kind of stuff, I am more confident that the money is going to support you. You know what I mean? Versus like some big corporate entity that, you know, who knows what's going on. And then what you said with the businesses, as far as like being genuine and don't do it just for the money, I couldn't agree more. I think what is valuable is to understand, though, that if you're ever going to start a business or do that, don't, like, if we were to start a business, it would be a benefit for us to try to like manage things appropriately, so we don't have to run just for the money. You know what I mean? Like, be smart about it and not like overextend ourselves. So then, you know what I mean, we have to chase that money, because you can do things bootstrap, you know what I mean, for like some time, you know what I mean? So then we have the ability and the comfort to kind of just engage with our customers more, instead of like, oh, well, we can't talk to this customer because we got to go over here and like chase the short-term transaction, you know what I mean, or whatever. So I feel like that's a important thing for businesses to be aware of. Like, don't overextend, don't be super flashy, and like, you know, that whole thing, because then again, you're just gonna end up running for the money again. You know?
Exactly.
So, all right, guys. Well, thanks for watching behind Behind the Hustle, episode 3 with Sean. I appreciate it. We both appreciate it, I'm sure. I'll have his links to all of his stuff in the description. So please take a moment and look at those things. I would really appreciate that. But until the next time, we're out of here. Thank you. Bye. So, stop.
It's fun.
For sure, man.
Cool. You just gotta, like, as the outro, it's just you throwing your phone against the wall.
Just boom.
You're like, Sean's out.
It's fun.